Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 7, knowledge of the absolute, text number 14. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Daiviyesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayametam tarantite. Dhamis. Daiviyesha gunamayi maya eva vratya mameva prapadyante mayameta tarantite. Daivi, transcendental. He, certainly. Aisha, this. Gunamayi, consisting of the three modes of material nature. Mama, my. Maya, energy. Duratyaya, very difficult to overcome. Mam, unto me. Eva, certainly. Yea, those who. Prapadyante, surrender. Mayam, etam, this illusory energy. Taranti, overcome. Te, they. This divine energy mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part and parcel of his energies, and are therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. As previously stated, both the material and spiritual natures, being emanations from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are eternal. The living entities belong to the eternal superior nature of the Lord, but due to the contamination by the inferior nature, matter, their illusion is also eternal. The conditioned soul is therefore called Nitya Bhada, or eternally conditioned. No one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. Being conducted by divine will, the material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. The Vedas confirm this as follows. Mayam tu prakritim vidyan mayinam tu maheshwaram. Although Maya illusion is false or temporary, the background of Maya is the supreme magician, the personality of Godhead, who is Maheshvara, the supreme controller. Shveta Shvipara Upanishad. Another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound, because the bound cannot help the bound. The rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. Devotional service or Krishna consciousness can help one gain such release. Krishna, being the Lord of the illusory energy, can order this insurmountable energy to release the conditioned soul. He orders this release out of his causeless mercy on the surrendered soul and out of his paternal affection for the living entity, who was originally a beloved son of the Lord. Therefore, surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is the only means to get freed from the clutches of the stringent material nature. The word mam eva are also significant. Mam means unto Krishna, Vishnu only, and not Brahma or Shiva. Although Brahma and Shiva are greatly elevated and almost on the level of Vishnu, it is not possible for such incarnations of Rajaguna, passion, and Tamaguna, ignorance, to release the conditioned soul from the clutches of Maya. In other words, both Brahma and Shiva are also under the influence of Maya. Only Vishnu is the master of Maya, therefore he alone can give release to the conditioned soul. The Vedas, Shvetashvatara Upanishad, confirm this in the phrase tam eva viditva, where freedom is possible only by understanding Krishna. Even Lord Shiva affirms that liberation can be achieved only by the mercy of Vishnu. Lord Shiva says, Mukti padata sarvesham vishnur eva na samyashaya. There is no doubt that Vishnu is the deliverer of liberation for everyone. Taiviyesha gunamayi mama maya dharatya mameva ye pravadante mayametam taranti te. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. Those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Namo Vishnu Varaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskadyade Satarne. In some theologies, there's this conception that the devil somehow or another is competing against Krishna. Or maybe we might even think that maybe Maya is a force that somehow or another unfairly afflicts misery upon the conditioned souls and binds them to the material nature. But that's not the philosophy in Bhagavad Gita, nor in Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhakti yogena manasi samyak pranihite mule apaishat purusham purnam maya cha tad apashrayam. That in his meditation, Vyasadeva saw there was Krishna, and behind Krishna was Maya on his backside. In other words, Maya, which also means mercy, is one of the energies of Krishna under his control. Parasya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate Swabhavaki Jnana Balakriyata. And all his energies work as a natural sequence. They don't act apart from Krishna. So everything that's going on at every moment, everywhere, for all time, is completely under Krishna's control. So what's the problem? The problem is that we're not under control, of Krishna at least. So the free will of the soul is either orientating his desires towards the ignorant misconception of identifying himself with the gross and subtle bodies, or orientating his desires towards serving Krishna. That's his choice. When he orientates his desires in one way, he gets a result. And when he orientates his desires in a different way, he gets a different result. Now, we've already gotten the result. The result is, we have two results here. We have one is that we've gotten a material body, so it means our desires previously weren't 100% in Krishna consciousness. And on the other side, we're here now, trying to become Krishna conscious. So we've gotten both results. We've gotten the results of not fully surrendering to Krishna, and we've gotten some result of partially surrendering to Krishna. That's why we're here. And if we continue on trying to surrender to Krishna through the process of Krishna consciousness, and one of the processes is to understand things properly, and one of the things to understand properly is that as long as we're not orientating our desire towards Krishna, or becoming conscious of Krishna, then the result is that we'll have to take one body after another. Paravastava abodha jata yavan nadvignasita atmatadvam yavan kriyastava didam manomai saravatmana yenu shrira bandhaha. That as long as one is not orientating one's desires towards remembering Krishna, by serving Krishna, by understanding Krishna, then so long one is said to be defeated by ignorance. And what's the symptom of ignorance? Is that our consciousness becomes, the mind becomes unclear. Paravas tavat bodha jata, yavana jignasita atmatam, yavan kriyas tavat idam vai. The mind becomes cloudy by material conceptions. And as long as the mind is cloudy, the consciousness is unclear. And as long as our consciousness is unclear, we have to take one body after another. In other words, there is a relationship between the soul and the subtle body and the gross body. The soul has consciousness, but if the soul is orientating his desires towards the material consciousness or material conceptions, then that energy covers the mind. Krishna arranges it so our mind becomes covered. And when our mind is covered, we can't see things properly. And we can't see things properly, then we don't know what to do. And when we don't know what to do, we do the wrong things. Either in goodness or in passion or ignorance. Although goodness is certainly more appreciated than ignorance or passion, but still, goodness is still binding. One can stay in goodness for a long time and not become Krishna conscious. On the other hand, when we orientate our desire towards Krishna consciousness, evam mana karma prasam prayunkte avidyatman ubidiyamane pritirna yavan mai vasudeve namuchite yoga vimuchite deha yogena tadvat. So when we actually try to develop love for Vasudeva, the other thing is evam mana karma prasam prayunkte avidyatma upadiyamana. As long as we maintain these upadis, that I am this body, and that my business is to take care of my body, etc., then these upadis, evamana karma prasam prayunkte avidya, are produce of ignorance. And we have to remain in the material concept of life. Now, we have to work in the material world, but when we desire to serve Krishna, then Krishna arranges our work becomes spiritual. And when we desire not to serve Krishna, we desire something else, then our work is said to be material. Now we may think we're looking at the material energy, but actually what we're looking at is our conceptions of what we think is material and what's spiritual. Actually everything is spiritual, but when we don't see it in relation to Krishna, then to us it becomes material. And when we see it in relation to Krishna, everything becomes spiritualized. It's a question of whether we add Krishna to the equation or not. Because in the presence of Krishna, our consciousness becomes spiritualized. And when our consciousness is spiritualized, then we can see how at every moment, all the time, not only when we become Krishna conscious, does suddenly Krishna take control. Otherwise, he's asleep at the wheel. When we become Krishna conscious, wake up, Krishna. Oh, Krishna, okay, what's going on? What should I do? Help me. Okay, I'll help you. No, at every moment, Krishna is completely awake, and he's controlling everything and giving everyone all the time exactly what they deserve and what they need to become inspired directly or indirectly to become Krishna conscious. Now, the direct inspiration is Krishna. He puts us in ecstasy, and we become inspired to continue on in the process of Krishna consciousness due to becoming enlivened and enlightened in Krishna consciousness. And the other is Maya slaps the living entity down into ignorance and causes it to suffer. Now, of course, most living entities don't realize they're suffering. Most people think that they're enjoying in some way. At least periodically they're enjoying until things get worse. And then they think, well, compared to how much I was suffering yesterday, I'm suffering more today, so I must be suffering. Or I was enjoying a little bit before, but now I'm enjoying less, so I must be, something's wrong. Otherwise, we're used to suffering. Just like if you want to boil a frog, what's the best way of boiling a frog? Does anyone know? Yes. You're smiling. You have experience? If you want to boil a frog, then you gradually increase the temperature and you get used to it. Just like if you want to go into ice water, you put your little toe in there, and it gets used to it. And then you put a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. And after a while, you don't feel it anymore. You don't feel anything after it. So gradually increase it. So everything is, we're accustomed, just like if Prabhupada gives the example of pig. Pig is living in stool. Now we may not appreciate it, but for the pig it's completely normal. And he's eating abominable food, but it's completely normal. For him it's ordinary. When he eats stool, it's just like our eating a samosa. And there's varieties. There's probably more varieties of stool than there are samosas. So, and he's not thinking, oh my God, how did I get this body? I'm hungry, but I can't eat this stuff. This is too much. Get me out of here. No, he's completely adopted and comfortable. As a matter of fact, that's what hell is. Hell is a place where you get adopted to your next body. It's a training place. It's seminars, how to become a pig or a dog, whatever. They have training there. And by the time you're done, you're fully equipped to become a dog. You know how to bark. You know how to, you know how to wag your tail. Everything is provided in the seminar. And it's quite quick, actually, in the hellish planets, as it says, when the soul is dragged by the Yamadutas, something like 350,000 yojanas, which would take a long time to walk usually, except that they're doing it in their subtle body. So although it seems like an eternity that they're walking along this blazing, hot, sandy path in bare feet, and it feels like thousands of years, and the dogs are biting at their heels, etc., etc. But still, it's only a moment. But it seems like thousands of years to the suffering soul, because the more we suffer, the more time gets dragged out. When we're enjoying, it seems to go very quickly. And when we suffer, just like if you're going to the dentist and you hear the drill, zzz, suddenly time stops. Every moment seems like thousands of years. Tears are flowing from our eyes like torrents of rain. We're feeling all vacant in the world. And when it's all over, we look at our watch and it's been 15 minutes, although it seemed like we were there for 10 hours. So that's the nature of the material energy, fully under Krishna's control, and time is completely relative to our experience. In the heavenly planets, people are living comparison to us, millions and billions of years, in the case of Lord Brahma, trillions of years. But for them, it seems like the same amount of time that we're experiencing. It doesn't mean that it's the same amount of time. It just means that we experience things according to how much we're enjoying or suffering. And if you're enjoying a lot, time goes very quickly. And if you're suffering a lot, time goes very slowly. Of course, if you suffer a lot, after a while you get used to it. And then time gets back to normal again. Until they increase the suffering again. Then it seems to slow down a little bit. So it's all under Krishna's control. And if we have that faith, then we can make the right decisions. We won't blame Krishna for our situation. We won't lament. We won't hanker for another situation, because it all will be the same, except in devotional service. We want to fulfill Krishna's mission, the mission of Lord Chaitanya, because that's spiritual. We want to become Krishna's instrument so that we can help Krishna become Krishna's instrument for spiritualizing the world. It doesn't mean we want to change everyone's occupation or their gender or their place of birth. We don't want to change anything. We just want to help people add Krishna to whatever they're doing. Of course, we don't recommend you rob a bank and you chant your rounds, while you're doing it. Oh my God, excuse me, I still have a couple of rounds. Can you hold my beads for a while? I got to put the money in there. We don't recommend that, but if you're going to rob a bank, then you should chant Hare Krishna. Not out loud, though. Otherwise, they'll come looking for us. Prabhupada gives the example, it's like if you're a drunkard and you're drinking wine, that if you remember Rasoham Apsnukantiya, that I'm the taste in the water, if a drunkard thinks Krishna is the taste in the wine, then after a while, by drinking wine and remembering Krishna, he'll become a great devotee. Well, there are easier ways of becoming a great devotee, though. It may take you a long time. And hopefully by chanting Hare Krishna, he'll give up drinking wine. In any case, the whole idea is that everything is under Krishna's control, and if we're in Krishna consciousness, we'll be under Krishna's control too, directly. Or else, if we're not in Krishna consciousness, then we're under indirectly Krishna's control through his agency called Maya, who he's fully controlling, but Maya is meant to cause us suffering. Yatmas Jiva, was it? Atmanam Trigunatmakam, Paropi Manyate Nartam, Tat Kritam Prapipadyate. Yasamahito Jiva Atmakam Gunatmakam. So the living entity, Samohita Jiva, is completely put into illusion. And we forget Krishna, we're just put into illusion, that's all. And the illusion we're not really worried about because it's this body, is our illusory consciousness. And we find no problem because we like our body. Everyone likes their body. Even the mosquito likes its body. The bats like their body. Everyone likes their body. Because our tendency, our nature is to serve, and when we're put into illusion, we got to serve something. So we serve whatever body we're put into. And we love it, because our nature is to love. So we have to love something. If we don't love Krishna, we have to love something other than Krishna. And that's called samohito. Our natural loving propensity is misdirected towards something other than Krishna. And along with that comes Trigatma Guna Atmakam. Yasamohito Jiva Atmakam Trigunatmakam. So we're put into the threefold miseries. And due to our love to our bodies and our minds and things in relation to these things, we tolerate the miseries. And we even declare some of the miseries as our happiness. We dramatize our feelings of distress due to separation from our so-called beloved, our triumph over evil, whatever. But these are all products of illusion. The whole evil is that we're in Maya. That how glorious we think our lives are, or how decrepit our lives is. The only problem is that we're in Maya, that we're thinking that we're going through all these things. And when we wake up and see that it's all being arranged by Krishna, this whole drama that's going on, and then it has nothing really to do with me, other than that I can become an instrument for Krishna to wake people up from their drama that they think they're going through. That's the only auspiciousness. Other than that, then we're Shrigatmaka. Therefore, Bhakti Yogena Manasi, Samyak Pranihite Malay, Paisha Purusham. Oh, actually, that's not. What's the next? What was the first word? No. The next verse. About the Srila Vyasadeva and his mature wisdom controlled the compile. Anartha Pasamam Sakshat Bhakti Yoga Radhokshide Lokasya Janato Vidvam Chakre Samhita. What was the next? Satvitam Samhita. So, Anartho Pasamam Sakshat. So these are all due to unwanted activities, unwanted conceptions, unnecessary conceptions. Anartho Pasamam Sakshat, Bhakti Yoga Ahoshi. The only remedy is Bhakti Yoga. There is no other way out. All these protests, all these different educational systems, everything that's going on is just a waste of time. The only way of getting free is to please the controller of everything, Krishna. If we don't please Krishna, we remain in bondage. There's no other way out. Anartho Pasamam Sakshat Bhakti Yoga Adhokshide. Only through Bhakti Yoga. What's the next? No, the third line. Lokasya Janato Vidvam. But people are blind. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, in his mature wisdom, compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam, just so people can get light from the Purana. No, it's that verse about light from the Purana. That Krishna Sudama Upagvate Jnana Dharma Chapi Soha Kalo Nashta Drishametam Paranarako Dhanoditaha. That when Krishna left, along with Krishna, he left knowledge and religiosity. But he left behind Srimad Bhagavatam, and those who take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam will get light from this Purana. So we can see what to do and how to get out of our material conditioned life. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes.
So regarding health, how come that the living entities are content with their suffering situation? What will then induce them to change if they're not even aware that they're suffering?
Oh, people are aware they're suffering. It's just a question of how much they can tolerate. What can be done? Well, people have to realize they're suffering. In other words, unless they think that they're suffering, they think they're enjoying more than they're suffering, then what can you do? Because when we introduce Krishna consciousness to people, generally speaking, unless they're receptive, they're not going to experience anything. People can chant Hare Krishna and get absolutely no experience because they're not interested in getting any experience. They don't have any faith that they could get an experience. They don't know how to chant Hare Krishna to get that experience. They're not interested in experience. They're planning how to get more material experience. So people have faith that by some material arrangement, either today or tomorrow, then I'm actually going to enjoy. Then their minds are wandering, figuring out, making plans to enjoy. They won't be able to hear the holy name, which they have no experience of anyhow. That it's actually going to give them any higher enjoyment than the one they're planning for. So they have to get frustrated a little bit. They have to believe that my plans will not be successful in trying to enjoy the material energy, and let me try out the Krishna consciousness process and see if that will help me. So therefore people come generally at the beginning, as we'll find out later in this chapter, Chatur Vida Bhajante Mam Jana Sukhina Arjuna Arta Jignasya Arta Arti Kyani Chaba Artar Shiva. That the beginning is the Arta Artis, those who are suffering in the material world. So people have to be aware that they're suffering. The mudhas, they're suffering the same way that the artis are, but they think they're enjoying. They believe in the propaganda that they're actually, when they eating, sleeping, mating, defending, that's all there is. And they have faith in the future that they're actually going to enjoy more. So they're called mudhas. And generally the Naradamas, they're the ones who are creating the civilization for the mudhas so they can enjoy. But only a few of them, by good fortune, come in contact with devotees, and they theoretically can understand that there's something higher and that they can't really enjoy anything more than they're already enjoying. There's a limit to what they're going to enjoy according to their karma, and even that enjoyment is insignificant and generally leads to suffering. So when people are suffering, when they realize they're suffering and they're interested in maybe something higher, they get some good association, and they see someone who's smiling and appears to be happier than they are, then they may inquire, how did you become happy? That's why Prabhupada said we sell our books, not so much to convince people philosophically, but when they see the enthusiasm of the devotees, when they see their faces full of enthusiasm, they become struck with wonder, and they want to find out what's this all about. Maybe we can try it out. Therefore, in the beginning, the materialists were claiming that the devotees were taking intoxication. That could be the only reasonable explanation for their happiness. And even in India, they put out a movie called Dum Bara Dum. I think, is that right? Something like that. Dum Bara Dum means take another puff. So they had a movie of the devotees smoking ganja. It's called ganja? Ganja. And they're all smoking and going on, Hare Krishna. So that was the explanation why the devotees appear to be so happy. Because they're intoxicated all the time. Krishna. Because that's common in India. The Prakrita Sahajiyas, the Baals, the Owls, the Kardabekis, whatever. They have these kirtans, Hare Krishna, and then boy, my throat's so dry, I'll take out a beady, relief.
All the sadhus in the mountain,
they puff. And in Vrindavan too. So that's why I thought the devotees are so peaceful and happy and like that. So when there's, even in the Western world, people were thinking like that. These are hippies, they're all crazies, whatever else, That's why they're always smiling. Every time you ask them a question, they say, Hare Krishna. What's the weather like? Hare Krishna. What do you think of, abortion? Hare Krishna. Who are you going to vote for? Hare Krishna. So once they get over that explanation, then they think, well, they must, as they asked Prabhupada, Swamiji, can you show us a mystic power? And Prabhupada said, he pointed to his disciples and said, this is my mystic power. Before they were addicted to all kinds of sinful activities, illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, intoxication. And now they've given that all up, and they're dancing like jubilant peacocks in love of God. He said, that's my mystic power. So that's the alternative. Either they're intoxicated and they're just crazy, or they're in love of God, and the love of God has a higher taste. So much higher they can give up the normal activities of sense gratification that produce material happiness that people are hankering for. So that's the proof. Anything else? Yes.
We often read that human form of life is meant for self-realization, God consciousness, but a really small percent of humans is interested in
Yeah, there's only a very small percent of human beings in this world.
Yeah, but among them,
there are very few. Right now you can practically count them on your hands. People appear to be human beings, but they're actually not human beings. They're on the same level as animals.
Then why did they get human
They didn't.
bodies.
They only apparently have human bodies. Well, that's what it says. I didn't make it up. I'm not just criticizing. It's not that I had a bad day. I decided to, let it out on all this. No, it's Yatma Buddhi Kunape Tritaduke, Sudi Kalatradi Shuboma Ijadi, Itirta Bude Sarle Nakarichish, Ganesh Vavagesha Seva Gokara. That those, Yatma Buddhi Kunape Tritaduke, that those who believe that their body, which is made out of the three dhatus, Kapha, Pitta, and Vayu, who go to the places of pilgrimage just to take a bath and don't consult with the saintly people there, who believe that their land of birth is worshipable. They're said to be the same mentality as the cow or an ass.
So what's then the use of preaching to?
Because you can turn it, because Kirate Hunanda Pulanda Pulkasha Abira Yavana Shumba Yavanaha. That you can change what is that, by addition of bell metal, and what is the first word of that? Something. So by the proper process, you can change a non-human being into a human being by the process of devotional service. So we're introducing devotional service. We don't expect everyone to become human all at once, but it's a process. Just like we ourselves are trying to become human, because we're half animal and we're a little spark of humanity is within us. So we're also trying to become human. Human beings, Prabhupada said, begins at the Brahman. When you come to become an actual Brahmin, then you're a human being. Then you get all the qualities of a human being. But right now, we're practicing becoming human, becoming devotees. But it appears, people like to believe that they're human, but they act like animals. How many people who are not practicing devotional service are following any of the regular principles, if any of the regular principles, if any of them? Which means that they're completely under the control of their senses like the animals. Well, of course, this is not our beginning philosophy. When someone comes in, we say, actually, my dear audience, you're so fortunate you're coming here, you're on the path to becoming a human. That's not our introductory preaching to people. But since you asked, we can explain that human form of life is when we're actually in control of our senses. And controlling our senses means we're under the control of the internal energy of Krishna, the spiritual energy. Then we can develop godly qualities, which is what a human being is. They have godly qualities. Otherwise, what's the difference between an animal and a human being? They both are completely under the control of their impulses of the senses. We're not saying, as Prabhupada used to say, it's not my words, I'm just repeating what Krishna said. I'm not trying to insult anyone. It's Krishna who's insulting everyone. Anything else? Did you have a question?
You mentioned that we do not recommend thieves to continue in their occupation.
Well, we don't recommend that. If you have to be a thief, then chant Hare Krishna. But there are probably better ways, more auspicious ways of occupations where you can chant Hare Krishna.
I had a person in the class in a public lecture that actually rose a hand and said, "What if my nature is a thief?" And then they told me that he is actually a thief, and he would always like to bring some presents and donations. So, how does one deal with such? Can one accept such presents, or should one accept such presents if there is a strong suspicion?
Well, if it has someone's name on it, I think you should return it. Well, in Lord Nityananda's pastimes, there was a Brahmin thief who tried to steal, who was going to rob from Lord Nityananda. And therefore, he was making plans with the dacoits, and Lord Nityananda foiled it in so many different ways. And finally, he surrendered. And after surrendering, becoming a pure devotee of Lord Nityananda, Lord Krishna, then he went out and converted other thieves to Krishna consciousness. But he stopped being a thief.
This one, he is very popular among other thieves, and he's preaching to them.
Oh, this devotee.
And sometimes they protect us during Harinams.
Yeah, it was a little service. Great. But I wouldn't want to take that as an occupation. It's not exactly one of the 4 occupations. It's not one of the dharmic activities that are recommended in Manu Samhita. You have to get a reaction for it. I remember there was one devotee in Laguna Beach in the early 70s, and he was selling drugs. And he thought, if I give a percentage to Krishna, then Krishna will protect me because he's a business partner. But Krishna didn't protect him. He got caught and arrested. So, I guess he didn't give enough to Krishna. So. All right, thank you very much. Krandaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.